Welcome to the Westport Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie. I'm part of the programming team here at the library, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's screening of the award-winning documentary, No One Asked You. I wanted to take a moment to thank our community partners who are set up in the back. We have the Reach Fund of Connecticut here and Reproductive Equity Now. Thank you so much for your tables. Hopefully you've all had a chance to go back there and take a look at some materials and get some information. So No One Asked You follows comedian, co-creator of The Daily Show, and disruptor extraordinaire Liz Winstead and her team of abortion access front comics and activists as they embark on a 6-year road trip, the Vagical Mystery Tour, across reproductive rights battleground states, performing stand-up, supporting clinic workers, and centering abortion as an essential human right. At a time when our reproductive rights and freedom to bodily autonomy are being aggressively threatened and stripped away nationwide, No One Asked You is a bold call to action driven by laughter and humor as powerful tools for resistance and social change. After the film, please stay for a discussion and Q&A with an amazing group of reproductive rights educators and activists, including Rachel Rozycki, who is one of the film's producers, who's going to be joining us over Zoom from Chicago, McBride, a transgender activist and featured comedian in the film, Jessica Puck, co-founder of Reach Abortion Access Fund of Connecticut, and Liz Gustafson, Reproductive Equity Now's Connecticut director, who will also be moderating the panel. Thank you all again for showing up tonight in community with one another, and without further ado, No One Asked You.
Because in 2016, after months of infertility treatment, I finally became pregnant. And early in the second trimester, we learned that there were severe physical and chromosomal abnormalities, and I had an abortion. And I joined a support group, an online support group for people who have had to end a wanted pregnancy, and learned that my experience, which it was the worst day of my life, and it was seamless. I mean, it was organized quickly. It was done at Stanford Hospital by my doctor. I had a $75 copay. That is not the norm for many, many people, especially those who need to seek care later in pregnancy. So in 2020, when Amy Coney Barrett joined the Supreme Court, I went looking for an abortion fund in Connecticut to support, and I saw that there was not one. So a lot of stuff happened, but we started one. Liz is also another founding board member of Reach. So we have been funding abortion here in Connecticut since fall of 2022. As of last month, we have helped over 600 people pay for their abortion care. Yay! And we are an all-volunteer group. We are run by a volunteer working board of directors, as well as some outside volunteers. So this is definitely a lot of hard work, but it's worth it. And yeah. I think that's it. It's Jess.
Hi, I'm Jay McBride. I tell dick jokes. Oh, there's probably more. I was also a writer on Abortion Access Front / Lady Parts Justice League for a few years, and went on tour with them 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Yeah, so. And I was wearing glasses in the movie, but I was there.
Thank you. And Rachel?
Hi, thank you so much for having me and for being here. I'm a documentary filmmaker in Chicago, and I was the producer of the film. Ruth Lightman is the director of the film, and you know, like everybody who panicked in 2016 the first time around, abortion is an issue that has been very personal to both of us. Ruth has had, experience actually having an abortion. Jess, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so powerful anytime we tell these stories. I personally have not had an abortion, but I love a lot of people that have, and I love that I've had the choices that I've had in my life to make the decisions that I've needed to make when I've needed to make them. That's something that shouldn't be a luxury. It's a human right, and it's part of the reason that we followed this group for as long as we did. We know that this issue is not political, but has been politicized, and nobody cuts to it better than Liz and her team with humor to sort of break down and have those hard conversations, because obviously the more we tell these stories, the better off we are together, I think.
Thank you. So I am going to ask one question to start. Can you each take a turn to share more about the role of storytelling and also comedy in our fight to protect and expand access to abortion, access to gender-affirming care, and more?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll go first. Yeah, I am an abortion storyteller. I'm very open about my experience. That was not always the case. I remember one thing my mother said, and I know she meant well, but I remember her telling me, you can just tell people you lost the baby. And I remember saying to her, well, that makes it sound like I did something wrong. And I did not do anything wrong. Having an abortion can be a very isolating experience because of the shame that's put on it, which is one reason why I talk so much about mine, and I'm open about it, because it's not something to be ashamed of. I needed health care. I was extremely fortunate to get the health care I needed quickly and affordably, and that's just not the case for so many people. And so, I like to name it. I feel like if it's out in the open and we're honest about our experiences and the fact that there are many different people who have abortions for many different reasons, it just helps get it out in the open.
I think you should go with, I just misplaced the baby. I think that works better. It's just funnier, from a comics perspective. There's something very powerful about comedy and just showing up, it's very difficult to not make, it's very difficult to just not make this whole political climate your entire persona everywhere, and just I can't fucking say, I hate this, but we would go to these towns and this was the one chance they had to just really relax and just enjoy the night, and it was pretty amazing just to see that. One of the things in the documentary with Dr. Carhart that they don't talk about, he had all these pictures of horses in his clinic, and the reason for that was he loved horses. People, the antis tried to kill him by burning down his house, but instead burned just down the barn and killed all the horses in the barn. So this was just this is who they are. And so that's why he has the horses there. But just talking to these people, getting them out, just giving them a sigh of relief was just a huge... By the way, I have a canker sore in the tip of my tongue, so I'm not drunk, I swear to God. On the road, maybe I'll take a couple, but... No, but anyway, it's just being there, showing up, and giving people a night off from all the shit that's happening. It's very important, but also reminding them there's a lot of shit happening. So, roll up your sleeves tomorrow, but laugh tonight.
Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah, I think, I personally think that, or at least I hope, that comedy will save democracy. No pressure, Jay, no pressure. But I think that comedy gives us a connection, and storytelling gives us a connection, which in turn gives us an empathy for each other that we wouldn't have otherwise. And like Jay mentioned with Dr. Carhart and going into these towns, it brought people together that maybe weren't coming together otherwise, maybe didn't know that there were people that were advocating for abortion in their town. And the more that we come together and the more that we're visible, I hope the harder it becomes for antis. I think in the past, there was a real sort of fear, and there is still a fear. The antis are very, very scary. There is still definitely a fear. But I think that there's been this sort of movement to come out of the shadows and to be open and honest, and to change the narrative around abortion, because it's healthcare and it's not something that we should be ashamed of. And I think storytelling is a big part of that.
Thank you. I agree. And also to your point, Jay, of how much is going on, I'll note in the last 24 hours, so Connecticut's legislature is in session currently, and so that means our priorities or combating anti-abortion, anti-trans legislation being filed is going on, and so session goes until June. And so a lot of my time is spent at the Capitol, either in public hearings or lobbying, aka kind of stalking legislators. And so yesterday was like my one day to be home and work from home. And we have 2 public hearings on Monday. And so it was like my head down, busy time, and I was getting a lot done. And I look out my window in my apartment building and the dumpster is literally on fucking fire. And it was just I called 911 and they came, and they were also all attractive, and it was just a lot because it just felt like a really weird instance of, I'm like, really locked in, talking with our team, working on getting people turned out for Monday's hearing, and the dumpster's literally on fire. It's fine, but to that point where literally everything feels like it's on fire, what is 1 or 2 things people that watch the recording can do right now in this moment?
Donate to your local abortion fund. But honestly, that's huge. We are primarily grassroots funded. We don't qualify for a lot of big grants because a lot of funders are afraid of abortion. And while typically people who want to know what they can do to support us, when we say help us raise money, that's not really the sexy answer, but it's what's needed. Like I said, we're grassroots funded. So we encourage people, if you're able, set up a monthly donation. We have cards on our back table with our website. Even $5 or $10 a month makes a difference, and it adds up fast. The amount that we get through our monthly donors covers about a quarter of our abortion funding budget for the whole year. So that's huge. And then another thing is talk about abortion. Talk about it, normalize it. You're not always going to change everybody's mind, but use any opportunity to plant seeds. I'll just share a quick story. I'm currently self-employed and I work from home, but I used to work in commercial property management. And after I had my abortion at 16 weeks, a couple years later, we're getting into all this Supreme Court stuff. And one of the men in my office said something about, what's wrong with a 15-week ban? Why can't people get their act together before then? And I just said to him, I said, well, here's the thing, is that I didn't have my first trimester screening until I was 13 weeks. By the time those came back with red flags, I was 14 weeks. By the time I had additional testing and then an amniocentesis, I was 15 weeks. And by the time they got me in the OR, I was 16 weeks. That's why. That's why it takes time, especially in cases of fetal anomaly where you're not going to see these things right away. And I don't think I changed his mind fully, but he admitted, he goes, I never thought about that. I'll take it. If you can plant a seed, that's great. But just normalizing it, and also setting up a monthly donation at reachfundct.org.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of annoying. Like they started with 24 week. Oh, it's alive after 24. Then how about 20? That's when they can quote unquote feel pain, which is horse shit. And eventually went down to 6 weeks because that's when it has a quote unquote heartbeat, which is literally two blood vessels linking together, and they call that a heart. But anyway, one of the things I would say you can do is just make sure tomorrow's not the only time you take action. Make it no. I mean, there was someone arrested, a midwife was arrested this week and charged with murder. It was Oklahoma. I don't know if you guys know what state that was in.
Texas.
All right, same thing. Yeah, it literally is the same thing. But this is happening in America where someone is being charged with murder for helping someone get an abortion. Make sure you let people know this. And there are people who allowed this to happen. There was a poll that said of people who didn't vote, how many were satisfied with where the country is. Something like 90% were unsatisfied. So, well, what the fuck did you think? Where were you? Just hold people's feet to the fire. Be like, this is happening. We need to get this out. We can't just go out tomorrow and be like, well, I did my part. Like, this has to be a fight. It's not going to be won, but it has to be won by everyone fighting. Except me. I'm not a fighter.
Rachel?
Sorry, yes, thank you. Yes, I don't know that I can say it any better than Jess and Jay. There are 14 states where abortion is just outright illegal, and that makes those abortion funds in every other state that much more important because those states are being inundated with folks that can't get abortions near where they are. People are having to travel more. It's a lot more dangerous. It's really scary. So having that money to support abortion funds is so important. And again, like they both said, talking about it is essential. Connecting the dots, right? It's, I can't remember that poem, the poem that's going around where, they came for this person and I didn't do anything, and then they came for that person and I didn't do anything, and then eventually, they come for you, right? I mean, that's abortion, that's trans rights, that's gun legislation. All of these things are connected, right? And we have to connect the dots for people so that they understand that all of this affects our democracy and our human rights. And so I think that's really important too. Oh, and you can go to aafront.org if you want to join the antics. They have an activist calendar. They have all kinds of resources, a list of abortion providers and abortion funds that you can donate to. So if you need resources beyond, like Jay said, beyond tomorrow, next week, the week after, and you don't know what to do, definitely go there and they'll point you in a direction.
Thank you. One thing I will also add in terms of resources, one thing that people can do is being a resource for their own communities, their own friends, the people that they love, and knowing where people can get care and how to get care. So Reproductive Equity Now, we do have a New England abortion care guide, and folks can put in their zip code and find the nearest provider to them. It also does flag where anti-abortion centers, crisis pregnancy centers, fake clinics, all of the names mean the same thing. Those fake clinics that purport to provide this care but are actually the forefront of the anti-abortion extremist movement and are incredibly harmful. Our abortion care guide does flag those. I'll also add that Reproductive Equity Now has a pro bono legal hotline that is in operation here in Connecticut and also in Massachusetts, and that is for providers, for patients, for helpers, funds, or anyone that just has questions regarding their ability to access, provide, fund, and help people access that care. I think this moment really demands all of us to know where people can get care. All of us should know what anti-abortion centers are and where they are in your community, so you can educate your folks, your neighbors, your friends, et cetera, to avoid them and why. And so with that, just looking at time, I want to make sure that folks in the audience also have an opportunity to ask questions too. I think it would be great for this to be a discussion as well. So if you do have a question, there is a designated place for you to go, no pressure. Or you could send someone else to ask.
You have to sing a song for us, though.
Or tell a joke.
Nobody. I will also just add, while we wait for people to decide if they have questions, that, you know, it's super easy to get burnt out in this work. I think Liz and I can testify to that. And I read something the other day that's like, it's better to do a small thing 100 times than it is to do like one big thing once. And that's kind of where we are with repro work. You know, it's definitely better to make a small impact when you can.
So my question is Connecticut in danger of losing our right to abortion? And also, do we need volunteers to escort people into clinics? Are they being harassed here in Connecticut?
Well, to your first question, every state is in danger, at risk, and a potential victim to the threat that our federal administration poses, that our Supreme Court poses, not just for the next 4 years, but for what happens after. In addition to that is Connecticut codified the right to abortion in 1990, but similar to Roe, is built on a viability framework. And so in statute, it does say abortion is not literally, I'm not a lawyer, gotta like add that, but it does say that abortion is legal up until viability, which is not a medical term. It is very much up to interpretation. But so up until viability, except for the life or the health of the pregnant person. And so it is not actually the doctor deciding, it is not the person who may need care after viability, which is around when it is interpreted 24 and 6 weeks. And it is hospital lawyers, it is administrators, it is the government deciding, and not the medical provider and their patient making the best decision that is for them and their health and their family. And so I will say currently, because of that, people still have to leave Connecticut to access abortion care later in pregnancy. So we are incredibly proud of the progress that we have made here in Connecticut, but just because it is legal, it is not accessible. And that's why we always said Roe was the floor, and at least it's a little bit more of a solid ground for us to work off of here in Connecticut, but there's still a lot more work to do. In terms of clinic escort volunteers, I would recommend reaching out directly to Planned Parenthood of Southern New England and Hartford GYN Center. Hartford GYN Center is the state's only independent provider. And so they did have a clinic escort program, but then they have a different location now, but they might have other volunteer opportunities available. So I would definitely recommend reaching out directly to clinics and seeing how you can support them and volunteer and what their needs might be. That's a great question.
And just to kind of piggyback off that, you know, we get asked a lot, you know, why does Connecticut need an abortion fund? It's legal here. Yes, it is. That said, according to the United Way, nearly 40% of Connecticut households live either paycheck to paycheck or below the federal poverty line. That's huge. So again, there are so many reasons why it's not accessible in Connecticut that have nothing to do with its legal status. And I think that's important to note.
Hi. My question is, How do you have any suggestions on how to interact with people who you're trying to educate without being so angry? Because watching this, I don't feel like I want to be kind to those people, but I don't know how you would get the message across, if that makes sense.
That's why I usually set dumpsters on fire. Sorry, it was an honest mistake, I swear.
She didn't know it was yours.
It's tough. I'm at a point, I don't focus on the people that have voted against my interests,
Right.
but I focus on the people that I do care about, the people in my community, and I focus on them, and I've made it my mission to just be like I'm gonna be there. I want them to see me standing up and see me being where I can be. And I really think there's some people, they just have to wake up and see for themselves, and I don't know that I can convince them. But I do know a lot of people that just need to know that they're not alone, that need to know that there are people around them. And that's how I'm focusing my energy, but that probably doesn't really answer your question. But also the dumpsters.
Yeah.
I found it helpful for myself when I stopped trying to change people's minds or convince them of something. And just because that's a lot to carry. And it makes me very angry. And my blood pressure is already high, and I don't need to add to that. So again, like that conversation with my coworker, I just said,
that made me mad.
This is it. It did make me mad. It made me really mad. I'm like, who is this dude telling me, And, but I just laid it out, and then I walked away. And, he did say, I never thought of it like that. And, you learn to kind of find where your wins are. And no, I didn't make him go, oh my gosh, now I'm going to become a Democrat and I'm going to volunteer at Planned Parenthood. But again, I made him think.
Right.
And that's a win.
I think if I could just add, I think that's absolutely right. And I think the idea that we're not going to, especially with this film, we knew that we weren't going to be changing hearts and minds necessarily. We're not winning over any antis. But we are winning over people who maybe believed that abortion should, what's the big deal with a 15-week ban? Or what's the big deal with this? Or people who hadn't thought of abortion really as healthcare before. And I learned a lot from watching Liz and Dorinda interact with people in a way that is much more generous than anyone deserves to be treated, any of the people that they're talking to. And I just come back to having those conversations with people instead of trying to convince people or change minds, just this is where I'm at. This is why this is important. And if you disagree, you disagree. And yeah.
Thanks.
One of the things too, I'm sure that guy that you talked to did his research online. But one of the things, I think abortion is still a winning issue. I think the majority of this country they don't want to see a 10-year-old rape victim be forced to carry their child to term. Abortion's a winning issue, and I think, at least I hope it is. I don't know. I think it's just sticking around and seeing it out.
Thank you.
I guess I'm not really sure. Well, I have a question. So I had an abortion 50 years ago, in the early 70s, and it was the best decision I ever made. And I find it so distressing that people don't seem to be aware that, I've had 5 miscarriages since then, they were necessary. And people just seem to be so ignorant. I'm not even sure what my question is, other than how to educate people. I don't mind saying that I had an abortion. I'm proud that I did it. But then people try to make me feel like I'm supposed to be ashamed of myself. And I also now have a 32-year-old daughter who doesn't even think she wants to have children, because what if something goes wrong and she can't get an abortion? And that's really sad. And here I am 68 years old and I have more rights than she does now. I'm not really sure what my question is, but I guess I'm not, I mean, but I feel like people have made me feel like I'm supposed to be ashamed of myself because of what I did, and I'm not. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. Just how to educate people, and
I just want to say
there's a
thank
lot-
you.
First of all, there's a lot of ignorance out there. Let me go ahead, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for sharing your story just now, but it sounds like you continue to. And that is like exactly what folks should be doing if they feel comfortable or compelled to, or safe to. The opposition uses the word abortion more than our side to say, right? And I think there's so much power in you right now and in your own life and sharing your own story and taking back that narrative. So I really want to thank you. That is a reason organizations like Abortion Access Front, like We Testify, like Shout Your Abortion, are who inspired me to share my own story, because I had my abortion 3 months into working in this field, and I was like, no one's talking about like abortion. So organizations like Abortion Access Front inspired me to do the same. So I just want to thank you for continuing to share your story, because you're probably inspiring other people to do so as well.
I don't know anybody in this room
Yet.
be able to get up and say it. Anyway, here I am.
You know us now. Thank you.
It's a good job
It seems that there is this emphasis on pro-abortion, and I don't know that people are really pro-abortion, but they're pro-choice. And it seems that, it seems so obvious that what it takes to raise a child, a human being for the rest of their life, goes beyond the conception. And it just seems more should be made of that people aren't against life. They just want to be able to be free to raise a child when they want the child. So anyway.
I will push back a little on the pro-abortion thing. I am pro-abortion. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that I think everyone should have an abortion. It means...
You're pro for the right to have an abortion.
It means that I'm pro-healthcare, because abortion is healthcare.
Of course.
I am pro-abortion. I am pro-heart valve replacement. I'm pro-root canal. Do I want you to be in a situation where you need a root canal? Not really. But if you need one, I want it to be available and accessible to you. And that's, to me, what a lot of us pro-abortion means. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that to be pro-choice implies the idea that there is a choice. Mm-hmm. And for so many people, there's not a choice. Right. And so, again, I know where a lot of people are still uncomfortable with the word abortion, and saying that you're pro-abortion means that, you're just like, I hate babies. No, again, I wanted to be pregnant, and I needed an abortion, and I had an abortion, and I'm grateful that I could get that health care. I went on to have a son a year later, who's now 7, and he's the best. Just diagnosed with ADHD. Anyway, so that's kind of like where we're coming from with when we say we're pro-abortion is, again, it's like pro-knee replacement. If you need it, I want you to have it and be available to you. I don't think that every pregnant person out there needs to have an abortion. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's so much with messaging that the other side seems to have, where it's just like they seem to think like, we're in the operating room cheering because we love this moment so much, like landing a triple axel or something like that. But it's like, look, you really, I love the fact that this is still available in this country, that a woman can choose not to have an abortion, to not to be forced to give birth, and to have, and I think it's just, when someone says, well, like, you don't love abortion, it's like, well, I love that it's available. I love that you know.
I love healthcare.
Right, I love healthcare. I love the fact that someone who needs it has access to it, you know, and I would love for more people to have access to it, you know, and I think it's just this whole messaging thing that I think people hear someone say, I love abortion. It's like, oh, you love murder? It's like, that's the other true crime part of me that loves murder, but abortion's a totally separate thing. Like, I mean, I love a good murder, but totally different.
We have time for one more question.
Well, this will be a good closeout, I think. Thank you for coming, and thank you for the library for doing this. Right before I came, I looked up to see where this film was distributed, because I hadn't heard of it before. And that concerns me. Netflix won't pick it up, because, boy, you'd get a lot of, you know, so nobody will pick it up, huh? Because to me, that would be such a big help for the momentum across the country right now that I think a lot of people would like to get on board.
Wow, do I love this question, and I so appreciate it. There's a real challenge in documentary film right now and in storytelling, and it was true before this moment in our democracy where these big streamers like Netflix, Amazon, Apple were, you know, really they started sort of producing their own content and weren't taking risks on independent voices, which are necessary to tell stories like this. You know, if you look at the film, I'm going to try not to go on too much of a tangent right now, but if you look at the film No Other Land that just won the Oscar, made by an Israeli and a Palestinian, about the Israeli army coming in and uprooting Palestinian towns for no reason. I mean, that film just won the Oscar, and nobody will touch it. And I understand that sometimes these issues feel really hard and or contentious, but there are audiences that want to see these films, like you mentioned, and people really deserve the opportunity to. So we personally don't have distribution. We tried many times over a number of years to get a big distributor to pick us up. But now we're distributing it independently. So we are available on a platform called Kinema, Kinema, right now, where you can set up a community screening, or you can also rent the film. And there's another platform called Jolt, J-O-L-T, created by the people that used to run Sundance TV. And they are really working with films like us to give us a jolt, to get us out to audiences, because they know that the big streamers aren't taking risks on the things that audiences actually want to see. So we are working on it, and right now I would point people to Kinema.
And also, don't forget, I mean, by just things can go viral now in a way that has never been the case before. So just because it's not on a streamer doesn't mean we can't still share it. And obviously, I would love to see you guys have it on Netflix or something like that. But whenever you see a chance to share it, like, you can help 100%. In like no way that you right, like you could before. So.
Thank you for that question. And Jess, Jay, Rachel, thank you so much. Any closing words before we officially close down the discussion for this evening?
It's Fundathon season, which Fundathon is a national fundraising campaign for abortion funds. It's put on by the National Network of Abortion Funds. And this year they are matching all gifts between mid-March to May 31st. They're matching them dollar for dollar up to $50,000. So I'm gonna do my fundraising pitch again. If you were to make a gift to Reach during this period until May 31st, it will be matched. And so your impact will be doubled. So go forth, donate to your abortion fund, and talk about abortion. Talk about it, normalize it.
It's weird because it's also give your favorite trans comedian $20 today. I know it's crazy. It's like, it's just that it worked out on the same day, but no.
Do you have someone to match it?
Do I? No, just just please don't get complacent, and please don't sometimes living in New York or living in LA and Connecticut to some extent, we feel like, oh, but we're okay here. Or like if people don't like it in Texas, why don't they move? And you're like, that's not reality for so many people. So please just, I know we have it rough, but there are a lot of people that don't. So please just keep your foot to the floor on this.
Just want to see if Rachel had any closing thoughts.
I just wanted to, Liz, Jess, and Jay, thank you so much for being here. It means so much that you were here to represent the film and be on the panel, and for everybody that came out to see it. It means so much that we keep having these conversations, and it's really our community and our humor that are going to get us through this. So thank you all, and keep having those conversations, and of course, donate to abortion funds, and also if Jay has a Venmo that they'd like to share. But thanks all.
And I will say, please come raise some hell with me at the Legislative Office Building in the Capitol. Please get involved in our state effort to pass proactive repro legislation to address the barriers that we have to protect our providers, to expand access not just to abortion, but gender-affirming care, safe birthing care, access to doulas, access to fertility care and treatment, and so much more. There is a table back there. If you sign up, you will get emails from me. I promise you will hear from me. But there's still a lot for us to do. Session's not over until June, so we have plenty of time to make some reps uncomfortable. And do some good, or good trouble to say. So in closing, thank you so much again to the panelists. Thank you so much to the Westport Library, and thank you all for joining us tonight. And I hope everyone gets home safe. Thank you.